Passion students, how you feeling it this week? I hope you're having an incredible week so far. I'm so excited to be with you guys for group week this week. If we haven't had a chance to meet, my name is Gerald Fadayomi. I have the privilege of serving as a high school pastor up in Forsyth County, but I'm so excited to be a part of what's happening in Passion students. You guys have an incredible team leading you, and I've heard so many great stories of what you guys are doing in your community and around your schools. If you haven't been with us for the last couple of weeks, we've been in a series that we're calling Youth, where we've been looking at a letter that was written from the Apostle Paul to his mentee, Timothy. And in this letter, Paul is challenging Timothy, he's encouraging him, and he's showing him the ropes of how to lead in the context that he's going to be in. And we've been looking at one particular passage in this letter where Paul says something to Timothy that is really, really helpful to him, but is really going to cause him to step out and to lead in a different way. 1 Timothy 4:12, it says this, it says, "Do not let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set an example for the believers in your speech, in your conduct, in your love, in your faith, and in your purity." What an incredible message from Paul to Timothy. Not to let anyone look down on you because you're young. You might be young, but you can make a difference. You might be young, but you can still have influence. You might be young, but you could change the world. And then he tells him how to do it. He says, go set an example for the believers, not just for people your age, but for anyone who is around you in the way that you treat other people, in the things that you say, in the way that you love, in your faith, and in your purity. And so far, we've covered what it looks like to set an example in your conduct. We've covered what it looks like to set an example in your speech. But this week, we're gonna dive in and talk about what does it mean to set an example in your love. Now, talking about love is a fun thing to do, but it can also be a little bit challenging because love is really difficult to define, right? Like we love a ton of different things. I mean, unless you're Drake, and in that case, you only love your bed and your mama. I'm sorry. But for me, like I love a bunch of things. I love pizza. I love the Florida Gators, which may make you want to turn this off, and I totally get that. I love my mom. I love Nikes, only Nikes, Team Nikes, no Adidas around here. And I love my wife. Now, I love all of those things, but I don't love them all the same, right? Like, I don't love pizza the same way that I love my mom because, gosh, that would be really insulting to my mom. And I definitely don't love my mom the same way that I love my wife because that would be real weird, right? Like, love, depending on the context, can mean different things. And so context is really important as we talk about love. And that's true for us, but it's especially true as we look at the encouragement, the command, the instruction that Paul is giving to his mentee Timothy to set an example in his love. You see, when Paul is telling Timothy to set an example, he's not using the word that we're familiar with in our language. For love for us, there's really only one word. But when Paul is writing to Timothy, he's writing in the Greek. And in the Greek, there would have been 7 different words that he could have used to describe love. And he chooses one specific one. And the word that Paul gives Timothy for the way that he wants him to love other people is extremely important because we see it all throughout scriptures, but in a different way. You see, the word that Paul uses to tell Timothy to set an example in his love is this word agape. And it's the same word that we see all throughout the scriptures that shows us the way that God has chosen to love us as mankind. And so what Paul is telling Timothy is, I want you to set an example in your love, but you don't just get to define love the way that you want to define it. I want you to set an example in your love by loving other people the way that God has loved you through Jesus. That's quite the task. Paul is looking at Timothy and he's going, I want you to love other people, but not by your standards, by the standard in which God has chosen to love you. So as a student, how do you do that? Like how do we love the people around us the same way that God has loved us? The good news for us is that we don't have to figure that out on our own. That God actually, through Paul in another letter, shows us the command or shows us the instructions on how to love other people well. If you've been to a wedding before, you probably heard this passage, but this passage applies to so much more than just weddings. It's 1 Corinthians 13. I'd love to read it to you, starting in verse 4. It says this. It says, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy and it does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but it rejoices in truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Love never fails. So what's the standard by which we love? Well, I think real love, true love looks like that. It's patient, it's kind, it doesn't envy, it puts other people before ourselves. And so when we ask the question, how do we set an example by loving other people, I think it looks just like that. In fact, like one of my mentors set me down when I first became a Christian, and he said, hey, the way that you should live your life is evident. If you can put your name in this passage, then that means you're doing a good job of loving other people well. So what would it look like for you to do that? I mean, for me, it would read, Gerald is patient. Gerald is kind. He does not envy. He does not boast. He is not proud. He does not dishonor others. He is not self-seeking. He is not easily angered. He doesn't rejoice in wrongs. He does not delight in evil, but always rejoices in truth. He always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. That kind of love never fails. That kind of love changes lives. So would you be able to put your name in the verse? And would those things be true about you? I know for me, it's not always, but I would strive to be like that each and every day because I've seen the effect of that kind of love. Not just from Jesus, but from another Christian who loved me in that way. I remember my freshman year in high school, I ran into this guy named Wes. He was 10 years older than me, goofy white guy from Nashville. Me and him, if you saw us next to each other, you would never think that we're friends. But I love this dude. And the reason that I love him is honestly because he loved me first. I remember freshman year, I was playing basketball and Wes would call me every morning at 5:30 and we'd meet at the YMCA and play basketball together. And he was really, really good, so he would kind of train me up so that I could make the team, and I did that year. I remember sophomore year in high school when I got the call that my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I was really torn up about it. I didn't know who to talk to, so I called Wes. And we kind of talked through it, and that was really all that I expected from him. But I remember when my mom was having surgery and I sat in the waiting room crying, the shoulder that I was leaning on was Wes's. I remember my junior year in high school where my mom called me from a number that I didn't recognize, and she told me that she wasn't gonna be able to make it home because she had just been arrested. And so at 17 years old, I was trying to figure out how to do life on my own, and the first person to come and pick me up and just take me out for a meal was Wes. I remember on my wedding day, standing at the altar and looking to my right and seeing Wes standing next to me. And I could go on and on and on about the moments that I've shared with Wes. But honestly, today, the reason that I know Jesus is because of him. And here's what's so crazy about this. I don't remember a time Wes shared the gospel with me. I don't remember him showing me a Bible verse. What I remember are the moments that Wes showed up for me. The moments that he was patient with me, the moments that he was kind to me, the moments that he put himself second and put my needs first. I remember the moments where Wes loved me in a radical way, and the moments where he loved me in a way that was different than anyone I had ever met or seen before. And so when I had made some bad decisions, when I had found myself in moments where I wasn't sure if God could love me, I just remembered Wes. And it made it possible for me to believe that there was a God who loved me because there was a Christian who loved me first. Y'all, your school, your friends, your family, your community is waiting on you to be Wes. They're waiting on you to show them the love of God, to set an example in your love. So could you put your name in that verse? What would it look like if you did? I think it could change everything, because that kind of love never fails. Love for you to talk about that in group. I'm excited for Passion students, for where you're headed. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of what's going on.